Good morning, everybody. Keith Engel here for TGI Sports Talk Sunday. Stream of consciousness. We're a couple minutes late as I was running a little late on the Mac, Jack, and Jim show. Catch that out. You can catch them in replay if you're watching me this morning. You can watch them later on. The great Mac and Jack, and then the ex-Cowboy great Jim Jeffcoat. Love coming on with them for 30 minutes before we start this show. And came up on the short end of our NFL picks over there last week, but it is what it is. Welcome everybody watching today on TGI Sports Talk. Obviously, everybody on Northeast Streaming Sports, Zodiac. You can catch us all on Facebook. Later on, you can catch us on live or later, Facebook, Twitter, or whatever we call it these days. Good grief. YouTube as well. Let's talk sports. We're not streaming live to today. There's some issues with my connection over there, which I will straighten out this week. Probably some announcements coming from Let's Talk Sports tomorrow. But please keep your thoughts and prayers for our good friend Dan Harris, as I say every show. No better guy that I've met doing this. And one of the better people I've met in my life, to be honest with you, who I've never really met. A lot of challenges for Dan, so keep him in your thoughts and prayers. A lot to talk about today, guys. By the way, we didn't have our live Sunday or college football huddle on Wednesday because of some work commitments. We did do an impromptu show on Friday, so check that out. Although it's a little dated after yesterday's games. But check that out. We had a really good participation as well. We'll talk a lot of college football today. A couple upsets yesterday, a couple close calls. Bama and Georgia look vulnerable, maybe. Maybe Ohio State's found their quarterback, not sure. We'll talk about all the top 25 scores and some other games maybe that make some sense to chat about. We'll get into Major League Baseball. We'll talk about who's hot and who's not. The Giants aren't hot. We got really 4 races going on. The AL East, the AL West, the wild card, and the 2 wild cards in both leagues. So we'll get into all of that. Maybe some injury news as well. The NFL we'll get into. We can talk about turf fields. We can talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers now, by the way, as you know by now, unless you're living under a rock, tore his Achilles on Monday night. He's now saying, don't count me out this year. I'll count him out this year. I've had the injury. I'm not an NFL player. I'm not in the condition Aaron Rodgers is in, obviously. But I will also say that this is not an injury that you come back from, in 6 months. It doesn't happen. Unless you want to risk further injury, I suppose. So we'll talk about that and some other stuff around the NFL. Overreactions to week 1. If I'm a Giant fan, listen, the sky's not falling, guys. This is one game. You played awful. You'll be all right. Let's say a couple good mornings real quickly. Good morning, CA. Great to have you with us. Watching whatever dart tournament you're watching today. I am a busy boy, man. I am so tired right now, I have to tell you. Golf yesterday. Great to play golf with my good buddy Kenny, who's a great follower of the show. I don't see him on yet. It was a tough day on the golf course. It was not pretty out there for any of us, unfortunately. I did play a little better, and we can have this. I think Kenny was self-medicating in the cart next to me, and I think I played much better on the back nine because at some point I didn't care anymore because I would think I had a little contact situation going on, which we can talk about. Buffering a bit. I had some problems this morning, it looked like. Was it just at the top, Drew, or is it still there? I'm not seeing it right now. Let me see if I got anything else going on here that should not be on. I don't have anything running anywhere. So we're going to have to hope it's all right. Listen, I am plugged directly in. I do a speed test before the show every time. The upload, which isn't the most important thing for this streaming, by the way, is over 550. And the download. The upload, which is important to this, is like 19, which is really good. And the latency factors are not there. So I don't know what's going on with Spectrum's internet, but right now I'm not a big fan. I'm not happy I went back to Spectrum when I moved at the moment. Good morning, Rick Sherlock. Yankees waited too long to get rolling. Mark McCini is on the bridge after this weekend. Probably not, because Mark, God bless you, I love you, but, guys like Mark kind of irritate me a little bit in the sense that what their team doing doesn't matter as long as some other team fails. And he's going to root against everything LA just for the sake of doing that. And I think you have to be more objective than that. And I've told him that. So it's nothing I haven't said to him before. Good morning to Bill Pulver. Listen, we're going to talk about some overreactions. Don't overreact to the fact that Aaron Rodgers is out. I like the Jets +9 today. How is a team with that talent? I understand they lost Aaron Rodgers, and we'll get into that. We're going to talk some college football first, but we'll be all over the board as usual today. With the weapons they have, with that defense that they have, that team can't be a 9-point dog on the road. I don't care. I love that 9 points today. Yeah, if you're talking about I don't know why. When we first start up, we get that hesitation, then it kind of goes away. I don't know what the deal is. I got a bad lighting thing going on here. I don't know what the deal is there either. Well, it'll probably be there. We got some issues today. Maybe it's me. Listen, holding on to fantasy. Rick, you came back nicely to tie. Drew, the last couple of days, has really put me in a tough position today because I have a feeling I'm about to be eliminated from playoff contention as Mr. Drew Ehrlich has come on with a vengeance the last couple of days as we were tied 1 point. I was feeling pretty good going into the weekend, and the freaking bottom fell out. If I can move a couple of categories one way or the other, I might have a shot. But right now, it does not look good. Good job, Drew, to you. 11-6, week 1. Not good. Great overall beginning with the Giants, the Browns. Knowles, Texas, picking in college football. We're going to get into college football here in a second. 2CA, some interesting stuff going on around the league. Fancy, it did take some. Don't be sorry, Drew. That's why we play the games, man. And when you keep it as close as it was, we're close in so many categories that there's big swings. I do think there's, room to win a couple categories today and get myself. I don't remember the number right off the top of my head. I got to keep this under maybe 7, if I'm not mistaken. Right now it doesn't look good, but it is what it is. So, but no worries there. So again, nice weekend out yesterday playing golf with some friends. In fact, our good friend Kenny, who we don't see yet so far. I hope Kenny is doing okay this morning. I'm sure we'll see him in a little bit. College football yesterday. Listen, I think a couple of things. And again, I talk about overreactions, right? I do talk, and I don't want to talk about out of both sides of my mouth. Wins are wins. But you see trends, and there's a couple teams that did win yesterday that I think, warrant watching out for. Let's go through the top 25 real quick, and then I'll make some comments on the games. You guys can put some comments up. We'll do college football, MLB, and NFL. Obviously, we'll get into our picks there later, and we can jump around if need be. Miami rolls over Bethune-Cookman 48-7 on Thursday night. Nice win for the Canes after really a big win against Texas A&M last week. Notre Dame rolls over Central Michigan. No surprise there. Another 3 touchdowns and 330 yards for Sam Hartman. Notre Dame's come to Jesus moment is next week against Ohio State. We'll talk a little bit more about them, and they may have found their quarterback while some other major schools are still struggling in that regard. Georgia 24-14 over South Carolina. Now, South Carolina is not a bad team, but this is a game that Georgia in the past would have, it didn't feel like South Carolina was ever in this game. Don't get me wrong. But this is a game that Georgia in the past would have put away earlier. or more convincingly. Again, wins are wins. But watching Georgia the first 3 weeks, and I have picked them to win their third consecutive national championship. But Georgia and Alabama both look vulnerable this year. And if there's a year where somebody's going to come out of that SEC and win the SEC championship, whether it's an LSU, Tennessee looked bad yesterday in losing to Florida. But if somebody rises up, we could have a surprise winner based on what I see. I still think Georgia will win. Alabama looks really vulnerable. Their quarterback situation is just atrocious. They benched Milroe yesterday. They started Tyler Buchner, who transferred from Notre Dame and basically came with Tommy Rees, the new offensive coordinator. But for this team to go to South Florida and win 17-3, is that what the final was, I think? 17-3. Buchner got benched. Simpson comes in, the third stringer. Well, actually, Buchner they're bouncing around their depth chart as well. Simpson at least runs for a touchdown, which helped them clinch this game, but gets sacked 5 times. This is South Florida, guys, not Florida, not Florida State, South Florida. Talk more about that as we go forward here. Michigan 31-6 over Bowling Green in the last game of Jim Harbaugh's suspension. J.J. McCarthy, who's played very well the first couple of weeks, did not play well in this game, but they get away with it. McCarthy with 2 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But Blake Corum bails him out with 2 touchdown runs and 100 yards rushing. Florida State with a big scare against Boston College. Now, maybe Boston College, they got themselves, they were in the game, then they took themselves out of the game in the third quarter, then they bounced back with a big fourth quarter, shutting out Florida State, scoring 13. I do believe they lost their starting quarterback during this game as well. But Boston College, who's, not been playing well, their coach is on the hot seat. They give Florida State all they can handle. And, sometimes these are little wake-up games, trap games that you got to watch. It's a trap game if you bet Florida State minus about 26 on the road. But Florida State comes out with a win, and at the end of the day, that's what matters, I guess, right? Wyoming and Texas, I said watch out for Wyoming. Not that I thought they could win this game, but that was a big spread. And I said Wyoming, I said it on the college football huddle. I did say it on Mac and Jack Friday morning. Wyoming was a team to watch out for spread-wise because Texas might be, sleeping a little bit after the big win against Alabama last week. Wyoming was in the fourth quarter, tied in this game before Texas broke it open with 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Good job at Washington keeping them. Wyoming keeping them in play. Ohio State rolls over Western Kentucky 63-10. McCord looking better each and every week. McCord has looked better and better. And with that flock of wide receivers that they have, and this defense seems to be playing better. Western Kentucky, I bet the over in this game, which I think Ohio State got it all by themselves. Good win for Ohio State here, and the defense looked better. Again, they're at home against Western Kentucky. I get it. But Western Kentucky can put some points on the board, and they held them to 10. Penn State, in a game that I thought could have been closer, at Illinois, who Brett Malina's done a good job there. They win 30-10. Good win. Nothing really stands out. Alar had another nice game at 200 yards passing, no touchdowns. But again, 3-0. Look, at the litmus test for Penn State is going to be Ohio State and Michigan, as it always is. They have no path to the playoff without beating both those teams. Washington, who's just really destroying teams, goes on the road. I was a little leery of this, but Michigan State's in disarray because of the Mel Tucker situation. If you don't know, he was accused of by a woman who he actually brought in to talk to his team about sexual harassment and this type of thing, and ended up having now there's a he said, she said thing. He says they entered into a consensual adult relationship. She says it was all unwanted. And he was first suspended, then fired by Michigan State. No surprise there. I've worked for companies that said if you were accused I don't care if you did it. You're fired. We're not leaving ourselves open to liability suits. And that's, the case here as well. And it also may be a way Michigan State gets out from under Mel Tucker's big contract. So we'll see. Washington rolls there by 34 points, by the way. Alabama, we've already talked about. Williams had a good day running the ball for this team with a touchdown, 129 yards on the run on the ground. But Alabama and Georgia right now look vulnerable. We'll see. Wins are wins, but they look vulnerable. Florida, big win for Billy Napier yesterday at home against Tennessee. Tennessee, through the years has struggled with Florida, and they continue to do so. Milton, not a great day yesterday, 2 touchdowns and interception. Antonin, I don't know if he's related to the kid who played at Clemson and is now with Jacksonville, but he ran for 172 yards and a touchdown yesterday. Keep those comments coming. We'll talk about them as soon as I get through this list here. So a nice win for Florida, Billy Napier, and a bad loss for number 11, Tennessee. Utah wins 31-7 over Weber State as expected. Oregon rolls over Hawaii. No surprise there. LSU, I'm a little surprised at the margin of victory here. We talked about it on the college football huddle on Friday. 41-14. I thought this game would be closer. Tough day game, early game, 11 o'clock start in Starksville, but LSU handles them, and they've rebounded nicely from their loss to FSU. Missouri, who I loved yesterday, 4-point dog at home. I loved Missouri against Kansas State, and I get off the golf course too late to get it in. I should have looked at my phone first and checked the time. They win 30-27 on a field goal with time expiring. Big win for Missouri, who's much better this year. 3-0 now before they start SEC play. Again, not saying Missouri's going to win the SEC, but they could be one of those sleeper teams to watch out for. Oregon State rolls over San Diego State 26-9. Pac-12 still looking good. Ole Miss 48. We're going to get to Dion, which I'm sure there's some comments up here about. Ole Miss rolls over Georgia Tech. I'm going to hold Dion till the end here. A lot of games. Iowa wins 41-10. We talked about it. We joked about it. Anybody, I would have bet Iowa. I didn't bet them, because they can't score 25 points a game. Here they get 40. They were laying, I think, 28. UCLA rolls over North Carolina something or other, 59-7. Washington State with another impressive victory. Duke rolls over a bad Northwestern team, but rolling is good. Again, we talk about winning the games are what matter, more so in the NFL than college. You need to win impressively in college sometimes to separate yourself when it comes time to make these choices for the playoff teams. You're encouraged to run up the score because of the way the system is built. North Carolina with a good win over Minnesota at home, 31-13. Oklahoma rolls against Tulsa, 66-17. Haven't been tested, haven't played anybody, but one of my dark horses to make the college football playoff. And lastly, we'll talk about Colorado and Colorado State. I think this was a game with a lot of animosity leading up to it, with some of the comments Jay Norvell made about Dion and the Colorado program. Jay Norvell, the coach of Colorado State, obviously. This game was a barn burner. It went into 3 overtimes, I believe. If I look at the score, 22 points has got to be 3 overtimes before Colorado was able to prevail 43-35. This could be, again, 3-0, but they got Oregon and USC coming up. I said they'd be 3-2 at the end of September. We'll see how that works out. That's the top 25. We'll take a look at some other games, but we got a lot. John DeLong's with us today. Good morning, John. Where am I? I got a lot of comments here. Here's I think I got that. Usually at the top. Oh yeah, we got all these, right? Let me find where I left off here. Fantasy hot and heavy. Now I decided to play again. Talking about college, talking about football. I know our fantasy conversation earlier was about baseball, but we're getting to the end there. Listen, I'm not overreacting to Georgia's close game. I'm overreacting to the first 3 games. are reacting to the first 3 games. Nobody looks dominant. Neither the teams that, again, have controlled this league for quite some time, most of the time, LSU snuck in there a few years ago, have looked overly. I'm still picking them to win, Rick. I'm just stating what I see. Missouri is a good team. And again, the idea is to get better. They just aren't dominating on the ground the way that they have before. This is not a great South Carolina defense. It's a good team. And I'll give them credit for holding South Carolina to 17 or 14 points. I thought they scored more points. And again, I'm just making a comment that there's no way you can tell me that Georgia and Alabama are as strong as they've been here the past several years. They're just not. Now, as the season progresses, your comment will probably be accurate. But at this point, and again, we've got 3 games in now, so these aren't necessarily overreactions. Week 1, I'm not reacting to anything. We'll get into some of those overreactions in the NFL. And believe me, by the way, I think the concern is bigger at Alabama than it is at Georgia. So I'll give you that for sure. Kenny Gifford, morning after playing golf on my new knee, feeling a little sore, but good. Good to see Kenny. Struggled around that course a little bit, as we all did, but Kenny had some issues. Oh, by the way, between the throw force, we lost 3 dozen balls. Listen, I have never lost so many golf balls in a round of golf since I started playing golf. I have to tell you. I should not have got the driver out of the bag at all yesterday. It's an iron course, as Kenny said after the round. I did play better in the back, Kenny, if you didn't hear me earlier, and I did attribute it to riding with you in the cart, because by the second 9, I didn't give a crap about anything. Contact highs are a wonderful thing. None of their quarterbacks look good. Or Alabama's in bad shape. Bad shape right now. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. Good morning, John DeLon. Good to have you with us. John, for those of you who don't, on the Sunday Stream of Consciousness, who don't see John a lot, John's a major contributor to our college football show. We like to have John with us, and we do a lot of bantering back and forth about the SEC, elitism, and the rest of college football. Anthony Price, good morning. You think Georgia's in trouble? They're not in as much trouble as Alabama. Alabama's already got a loss, obviously, and they do not look good. I will say this. Georgia beating South Carolina at home. Again, South Carolina's not a bad football team. Shane Beamer's done a great job there. Great job. Spencer Rattler, for all his faults, is not a bad college quarterback. So winning that game and getting out of there alive, winning it by 10, and it was a 10-point spread, but it never felt like South Carolina was in the game from what I watched. But Alabama to go to South Florida in a game that they normally would have. Again, there were some weather issues and delays, which caused a lot of problems, but their quarterback situation is horrible, and they're in bigger trouble than Georgia for sure. And a nice win, John DeLon, for your LSU Tigers. John's not just an SEC fan, specifically an LSU fan. Nice win. He was a little concerned about the 11 a.m. start in Starksville as well, I think. But a very nice, convincing win, I think, for LSU. C8, always darts going on. Big national tournament today. Close to some of y'all in New Hampshire. I'll try to get it in my ESPN Plus package today. By the way, Spectrum, if you don't know, Spectrum/Charter and Disney came to an agreement hours before Monday night's football game. And, I'm sure my rates are going up. I did get a $15 refund from Spectrum. All my rates are going up. I should have access to some things that we didn't have before. We don't know what the rates are going up yet, but at least it's settled. Listen, I'm okay paying for things that I want, right? Charge me whatever you think they're worth. And if I don't think they're worth it, I won't pay for them. But just give me what I pay for. That's all I care about. LSU had a 4th and 7 in the second quarter yesterday, John says, where JD5 hit Malik Nobears for a long touchdown to totally demoralize the Mississippi State defense. So big. I didn't see any of that game, unfortunately, but by the time I had gotten to my destination, that game was out of hand and was not on TV, and I didn't bother to try to get it on my phone by then. The liability in your company's case would have been if the person was proven innocent. In his case, he was taped. Now, what I'm saying is my company wouldn't have cared about tapes or nothing else. And there's a lot of companies that react the same way to those situations. I would have been let go if I was accused. No questions asked. Wouldn't matter if I was innocent or guilty. Do not put yourself in a situation. Now he's taped. He says, again, this was consensual. Whatever. I guarantee you, and again, I'm not trying to stick up for Mel Tucker in this. Believe me, I'm not. But I guarantee you, Michigan State is not unhappy this situation has arisen from a financial standpoint, because they likely are going to have a way to show cause for firing him and get out from paying him at least some of the $65 million or whatever million dollars is left on his contract. The Moose was sitting at a quarterback routes with no over the top, and Jim Neighbors took off. I thought Jim Neighbors had passed away. Sorry, John, just a bad joke. I believe that Neighbors improvised and changes route play. I didn't see this specific play, so I can't comment, but John watches these games. John knows what he's talking about. At the end of the day, an impressive win for me with LSU on the road. I said Friday, I thought Mississippi State would still be playing with some great emotion, partly because they're still playing in a way for their tragically departed coach, Mike Leach. So, but not a good loss at home. And LSU going to be right back in the conversation here soon. Idaho. I like Idaho. Ken Gifford is my favorite delusional Yankee. We were talking about this yesterday on the golf course, John. Kenny had asked me about who's the guy who called me a delusional Yankee. Kenny's not with us as often as he is on Wednesday on the college football huddle. Normally Wednesday, was Friday, as he is on this show. Anthony Price, I'm just saying, if it wasn't for them last two flags, Colorado should have lost. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. I mean, again, these plays happen in every football game. Again, you know how I feel about referees. Anytime this comes up, you don't put yourself in a position to get beat by flags. If I'm Colorado State, don't be whining about the flags. And I'm not saying you're whining about the flags, John, because you're just making an observation. But I have never, ever, whether I bet on a team and it cost me money, whether it was my own team, have I ever blamed the referees for losing a game. I will say they reffed a bad game, but my opinion is you don't put yourself in a position to get beat by referees. I do think Colorado showed some cracks yesterday, and you're going to see some stuff exposed the next couple of weeks against Oregon and USC. CA says not exactly. Three baseball. Okay. All of the playoffs and with three football leagues in the last. I don't know who's leading, and I'll talk. I guess I'll wait till we get the NFL. I have no idea who's left in our survivor pool because it won't show me. I can see the contestants when I look at maybe removing my ability to remove people. I can't see who's left. I don't know who won or lost. I'm out. We have three people left. And by the way, in the big pool that I'm in, that will probably be worth this year. Last year was $126,000, and I'm guessing it's going to be worth close to that again this year. 1/3 of the people went out last week. A lot of them on Minnesota, and a lot of them on Seattle, but we're still alive, so we'll keep you abreast of that. I'm in a couple smaller survivor pools as well. Watson on a new case. What most people don't understand about Georgia is Kirby pushes his players in the weight room and in the cardio training, and when they play inferior opponents. Adversity, even if it's manufactured, is good. Don't disagree. Don't disagree with the comment about adversity at all. Again, I would have expected a more dominant performance from Georgia at home in this game. That's all. Simple comment. I still think Georgia will three-peat at this point. You're the champion until you're not anymore. They haven't lost a game. And I do think that the possibility is there that somebody else could rise to the top, and LSU, John, in the SEC this year. The stars are aligning that way. We'll see whether they stay aligned or they do not. And maybe it'll be a surprise team in this league this year. Missouri's playing really good football. I liked them a lot yesterday. I mean, I'm so mad I didn't get that bet in. So Pulver, yes, sir. Not sure what that's about, but Gooley. I'm not sure what that one is either, Drew. Maybe I should know. My mind's not working very well here. SEC's in trouble this year, but with Texas and Oklahoma. Here's the thing. Kenny's beating this drum pretty good that, Oklahoma and Texas will come into the SEC. Well, most people think that Texas and Oklahoma will come in. I didn't say they'd struggle. My only opinion is the brand will still be what the brand is, and it won't be Texas and Oklahoma. Right? I mean, Texas A&M came in here. They're nowhere near being the brand. They're down there at the bottom brand-wise with the Missouris. Vanderbilt is more a SEC brand than Texas A&M and Arkansas and Missouri, right? Listen, I like Texas. I said Texas or Oklahoma would win the Big 12 this last year. I liked Oklahoma. They're my dark horse pick. Second dark horse pick if you want to include Florida State. And I don't think they're going to come in there and just be, the dregs of the league. Don't get me wrong. But again, there's a difference between going in there and playing well and even winning a championship and becoming the carrier of the brand. That'll never happen for Texas and Oklahoma unless they win, 15 championships between them in 10, 20 years, which won't happen. They could come in here and win a national championship next year, and Alabama and Georgia are still the brand. Colorado State put most of that on themselves with some of the daily, dirty cheap shots they made, especially the hit on Hunter. They did. Alan, and good morning, Alan. Good to have you with us. Alan, I'm curious if you're able to share your show. And I know there's some things going on behind the scenes, so I don't want to dive too deep into this. I'm curious if you're able to stream your show to LTS. You're over there pretty much exclusively. I wasn't able to today. I did speak with Dan a lot yesterday, by the way. And I don't want to get into it too much, but I was not able to stream my show over there today. And I'll work it out next week. Not a big deal. I'm just curious if, and you can message me offline if you want. Hunter, by the way, is going to be out for a few weeks. We're right. Travis Hunter, who's been playing both ways, and Dion's been, there's also some criticism of Dion of overextending Travis Hunter. And now he's going to miss the two most important games Colorado will play, at least in the relatively near future. He's going to miss the USC and Oregon game. Now I've said I think Colorado will lose these two games. If they win one of these games, they're in the conversation now for the Pac-12 championship. These are two really good football teams they're playing in the next 2 weeks. I'm not lost in the first week. Me too. There's 3 people left. I don't know. I guess you can declare yourselves if you'd like, if you're here. Alan and CA, Alec, if you're here, I know you were in. We can talk about that. Billy's still in the pool. 3 people alive. There's one. I don't know why I can't see. I am the admin. I can't see who's left in the pool. I can go in and see who you guys are if I want to remove you, so Billy, maybe I'll remove you today. Jets and Eagles one for you. You're only picking one team, by the way. Did you pick twice? Did you get in more than once? I said pick. Somebody did. Big air upset, Missouri over Kansas State or Florida over Tennessee? I liked Missouri a lot. So from that standpoint, I guess I'm going to go by the team I like the most. I'll say that Florida is a bigger upset over Tennessee. Big win for Billy Napier, by the way, Alan. And I know we'll be talking a lot more SEC in the years to come with Alan as one of his teams. His team, I shouldn't say. One of his teams. His team will be moving there with Oklahoma. I would say Missouri has improved a lot the last 2 years. They played some really good games last year. I like them this year. They're 3-0 now. This is a nice win for them. I like them a lot yesterday. So from that standpoint, I would say because I'm shocked Florida beat Tennessee and beat them fairly handily, I guess, if you want to say that. And it was such a big win for Billy Napier. I'm going to say that was the bigger upset. Anthony Price is still in the league, so we got Billy and Anthony still alive. Maybe Billy's 2 of the 3 if he's got 2 teams in there. Oh, maybe you took the Eagles this week, so Billy could already. Maybe that's what you're saying. If Billy took the Eagles already, he's already a step ahead of some of the others, maybe. Oh, golly. I'm reading it goalie. Oh, forgive me. Jim Neighbors. You and I may be the only guy who knows anything about, well, not the only ones. Rick and Billy are old too. Kenny's old. A lot of us are old in this show. CA survived. So maybe that's our 3 survivors. Billy, CA, and Anthony. Congratulations to you guys for continuing on. I'm out in week 1. Thank you, Minnesota Vikings. Had the Redskins. Interesting pick in week 1. We'll have to have you guys keep us abreast next week because I can't see who's alive and who's not. John DeLong. We got here 909. Good. I think Florida over Tennessee was a bigger upset. I agreed. As I said before yesterday, I thought 3-9 in play for Florida, and Tennessee was 8 or 9 win team. Now I think they're a 7 win regular season team. Tennessee was exposed. They lost a lot of talent from last year. Hooker, their 2 best wide receivers. Josh Heupel's a good football coach. From the looks of it, I mean, he was the brains behind Scott Frost and that UCF team that wants to claim a national championship along with Alabama from 2017. But so this was a big loss. Billy Napier, and if he survives, he's got a gauntlet of his schedule to run, which we've talked about a few times on the College Football Huddle next year. They may have the toughest schedule in the history of college football next year. Kenny, who cares about a brand? I'm just winning in money. Well, guess what sells? Brands sell. Alabama sells. Again, you can't. Notre Dame sells, Kenny. And there are teams even when they're down, their brand means something. Look at Notre Dame. I've said this forever. Remember the argument about Notre Dame not having the same cachet that they've had in the past. Notre Dame is very powerful within the NCAA. They're very influential with things that happen with the playoff and everything else. And they have not won a national championship since 1987, I want to say. But they're a brand that sells and people want to see. So, yes, you're right about money, but the money goes right along with the brand. And the Southeast Conference is always going to be identified with teams that are actually playing in the Southeast. Just my mind. Winning helps. You're not wrong. You're not totally wrong. We're in some gray area here. Texas and Oklahoma are going to need a few years to get used to how physical week-to-week SEC play is. This ain't the Big 12, and well, look at, Texas just went and beat, one of the top dogs in your conference at home. So it's not like they're going to go in there and go 3-6 in league play. Or sorry, they didn't go to the 9-game league schedule, but still, it's not like they're going to be there. And listen, the Big 12 has been a good football league through the years. It really has been a good football league. They actually caused a demise in one of my favorite leagues, the Southwest Conference. Oklahoma has been much better so far this year than last year. Defense has played much better, and they finally have more than just Drake Stoops to throw to. I agree with all of that, Alan. I did, again, pick them as a really outsider to get to the 14 playoff this year. But I can't get too excited yet because they really haven't played anybody. The wins have been impressive, which, again, when the committee starts looking, they look at those things. 3-0 is 3-0 at this point, and let's see what happens when they get into league play. 2 weeks, buddy. 2 weeks in, buddy, but you got Monday and Thursday. Okay, good. So CA and Anthony, Billy's already moved on to week 3. Good job by you, Billy. Mizzou was on an upward trajectory last year. I agree, John. Last year, after Drinkwitz gave up play calling duties, so them beating a pretty good K-State team isn't shocking to me. Me either. Again, I love that game. That was the one game I had circled yesterday that I had to have a wager on, and I got done playing golf 15 minutes later than I should have and wasn't paying attention to the clock like a moron. So we split yesterday. I bet 2 over-unders. 2 out of 3. I bet all over-unders yesterday. Didn't Texas just beat Alabama? I think I said that. You don't think these two teams can handle the SEC and with how the transfer portal has changed recruiting? I don't want to get into too much of this back and forth. We can go a little bit further, but we'll save this for the college football huddle on Wednesday. There'll be a lot more of that to be able to cover. Look, there's going to be debate about how well they do until they get there and they actually start playing. Right? There has not been a lot of crossover between these two leagues playing the last decade that I can remember. I'm sure there's been some. Texas, Alabama's been the most highly visible one here the last couple of years with them splitting and playing a really good game last year when they weren't really playing good football other than that. But a signature win for Texas last week and a good sign as they go into the league. Again, I think there's a big difference between, what I'm talking about and what the rest of you guys are talking about. Whether they do well or don't do well is not my contention. It's about identity and brand, and which leads to money. Week to week, Alan, week to week, playing Bama, then going, look at, I will give you that the SEC overall is a tougher gauntlet to get through than the Big 12. But again, the Big 10 is not easy in the East. It's pretty easy for the East winner most times to win the championship game, but there's a gauntlet to get through in the East. Yeah, you're going to have a few more cupcakes, but it's not. Everybody's got a few Well, I shouldn't say that. The SEC, who are the cupcakes right now? Vanderbilt might be the only one. Missouri's better. Arkansas, Ole Miss, any of these teams go out and beat anybody on any given Saturday. It is a tough league, but there is good football elsewhere, John. I just guess we only use Yahoo if possible. ESPN we watch. I couldn't find. I tried to do Yahoo actually, CA, and for whatever reason, I was having trouble finding the type of Survivor League that I wanted, and I gave up. And I do other stuff on ESPN as well, so that was the next easiest choice. Why they give me no visibility, I have no idea. I know a lot of you SEC. I'm not an SEC hater. Don't like to accept it, but the SEC and the Big Ten are just more physical than the other conferences. I've never disputed that. The only thing I've disputed with you, John, is the fact that there's some good football teams and good football being played outside of the SEC. Interesting that you do it all for the Big Ten up there as well, because you are sometimes hesitant to do that. Top to bottom, those leagues are better than the Big 12 and the Pac-12. Yes. Pac-12 is pretty deep this year, though. The league people better. And again, the problem with the Pac-12 is they're probably going to beat each other up, and they're not going to get a team to play out. Probably. I do understand how physical the SEC is. Now, maybe some of the other Yankees don't. Right, John. All the other leagues play flag football. Now, again, this is a constant argument that John and I have. I give credit to the SEC. I just don't discredit every other league on the face of the planet. That's all. Good morning, Dave Guyette. Good to have you with us. Hope you're doing well today. Lost with Carolina. I thought I'd get them out of the way against Atlanta. You know what? Just my strategies in Survivor have always wavered. And I've had years where I said, let me try to get this team out of the way, then I don't have to pick them later. The strategy, and it's the one we use in the big one, the one that's worth the real dollars. The easiest game on the schedule is always the one we take. This is a tough week for that. Take your last year's Natty game, for example. Georgia just physically dominated. But again, TCU it's probably not a great example if we want to compare physicality. That was a finesse team from the get-go. And the Big 12 is more of a finesse league, without a doubt. Without a doubt. But I do not doubt, as Alan said, that two teams, Texas and Oklahoma, will be able to enter, and you're going to recruit differently, and you're going to use a transfer differently. Remember, you don't need to be as physical to win in the leagues that you're in, so you don't bring those types of players in if you don't need them. I have no doubt that Oklahoma and Texas will be good teams in the SEC. I didn't say they're going to dominate the SEC, and I didn't say that they would be at the bottom. I just, again, think the brand, and you guys are talking about, you're talking about wins and losses. I started this conversation based on, they're not going to be, they're never going to be. And I guess, you know what? In 4 or 5 years, this conversation will be irrelevant anyway, because there probably won't be a Southeast Conference. Not in the way we know it today. There might be an SEC, because when we have, one super conference of 36 or 48 teams or whatever it is, and we do have regional conferences again that make some kind of sense. The SEC might, because they may keep that name because we want to keep SEC team, the SEC name alive. Which might be the only one that survives at that point, but they'll be totally different leagues. It'll be a totally different league because there's going to be full of teams that were never, ever been considered for the SEC. That's 4 or 5 years down the road, but it will happen. Before I'm 70 years old, it will happen. Alan. Okay, that's fine. He won't be a hater once his team's there, Alan or John. I give the SEC credit. I understand. I don't think Alan. I think Alan wants to believe his team will be competitive, and I think they will be. Again, I just don't think they'll be as relevant. Oregon and Utah aside, the Pac-12 might as well be playing flag football. I don't discredit Washington in that. Washington's got a pretty good defense. Oregon State, I think, plays pretty good defense. Just saying. It probably won't matter anyway, John, because they're going to come out of there with, I don't think, a one-loss. I think it's going to be very difficult for a one-loss Pac-12 team to get to the playoff. And the champion is very likely to have 2. I shouldn't say very likely. Possibly could have two. Not about as much about conference games. It's the choices, the big programs. But the choices, the big programs, scheduled non-conference. Well, listen, listen. Now I've got to say, your league does not like to go outside of the conference and play on the road against really good teams. We've seen this year what's happened when they do that. Except Alabama. Oh, I'm sorry. They played at home. Last year, they did go to Texas. So, listen, the SEC's non-conference schedule is not that great this year. It's improving. Correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't TCU go undefeated in the regular season last year? Right? That wasn't my comment, though. You were talking about physicality. Nobody's going to confuse. I don't think anybody is going to confuse Texas Christian University, TCU, as an overly physical football team. That was your reference. And you're right. The physicality of Georgia, they were not prepared for it. And this was a really good Georgia team last year and 2 years ago. So, again, I'm not even sure. TCU had a great season. And I know they didn't go undefeated. I think they lost to Kansas State, didn't they? Didn't they lose to Kansas State in the championship game? Maybe I'm misremembering that. SEC PGA. I'm not going to comment there because I don't know if that is accurate. I have no reason to say Kenny's not right. But I would tell you that would also be the fact. If it's a fact in the SEC, it's a fact. Well, the Big Ten's got bigger. There's no doubt. Look, they're all schools of higher learning. They're all good universities. There's no doubt academically the Big Ten is more highly rated than the SEC. Pac-12, probably the same thing. Big 12, I'm not going to comment there because I don't know that those are any better than the SEC as far as academic standing, especially within the athletics programs. So, boy, we got a lot of debate on this today. Silent play has a lot to do with the types. Carlos is here. Good day, Carlos. Yes, and you'll have to adapt. So Oklahoma and teams, by the way, football coaches know who they're playing against, the conference that they're playing in. They adapt their style of play. So listen, football is a copycat game in the NFL and the NCAA. Whatever's being successful, especially within a certain league, other teams are going to kind of do the same thing. I think Rick's talking about the GPA. The SEC is immortal. It might be. Listen, when the inevitable happens and we've got one giant power conference broken up into regions, so at least we get regional football back in a way. Again, this is probably 5, 6, 7 years away. They're going to have to name those regions, and the SEC the SEC name might very well live on, but you're also going to have, a bunch of other teams from the ACC and whatnot in the SEC, because you're going to have a West Coast, you're going to have a West, you're going to have you might have 5 conferences. I'm not sure. You might have the West, you might have the far West, the near West, the Midwest, the East or the Northeast, and the Southeast. We'll see how it all hashes out. It's all conjecture right now. How many have they played on the road? How many of those games have they played on the road, though, John? That's my question. Historically, they don't go on the road. They played a neutral site game. Now, it was in Florida against Florida State. Conference championship game isn't regular season. Fair enough. I could call it that's nitpicking, but fair enough. Bring up GPA. I lost the football argument. Equals I lost the football argument. Oh. John's, actually, that's probably true. TCU was fast on both sides of. I'm tired of talking about TCU. TCU is a one-year wonder. It's not going to happen again. We won't see that for a while. Now we might once we get to what John thinks is, and I'm not getting to this debate. Save that debate for Wednesday night, John, the 12-team playoff. Oh, let's not go there because we're going to switch off to some baseball here in a second. Bringing up GPA. Oh, I already said that. What'd you do? Say that twice, or did I bring it up twice? Yes, John, they are immortal. They have Medusa and Cyclops and others. I think with that, we'll go on to some baseball chatter. Let's get Drew involved in these discussions. Next two topics, Drew, you can be, and look, you can throw some football comments in there if you want. It's fine. Let's get on to baseball. Oh, God. We can continue this debate on Wednesday night, by the way. Dodgers secure, by the way, in baseball top stories, we'll get into the divisions and whatnot, and we'll talk about a few things. The Dodgers not nailed down their division, by the way, and as I said before, I hate to keep calling out Mark Mancini and not have him here to defend himself, but stop bashing the Dodgers. Especially when you can compare them to teams, but don't compare them to your own team that hasn't won a championship since 1979 and barely made the playoffs in years past that. Well, the 80s, they made it a lot, but kept losing to the Braves. So they secure their 10th division crown in 11 seasons, a great run. They do have a championship game, albeit in a shortened season. Asterisk season, if you will. Ohtani is going to shifts his focus to elbow procedure, which he will have. There was some debate whether he would have this surgery. My question is, why did you wait so long? This is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think this is Tommy John surgery. Not quite Oh, I guess there's two. I guess he's considering two different things, a surgical route, but it seems more like he'll go the surgical route, which is there is two procedures, Tommy John or an internal bracing procedure or some combination of both. I didn't realize there was anything besides Tommy John surgery for this. Now, again, the thing is there's an 8 to 10 months. No, what was it? I want to say it was a 10 to 12 month recovery period. Jason Dominguez for the Yankees is having the same surgery next week. Why did he wait a month to do this? 3 weeks, whatever it is. Because he has the surgery, he's not even going to be able to hit until now. Remember, Bryce Harper had this surgery. I don't remember exactly when he had it. And he was supposed to be out until July. He came back sooner, but could not play the field until recently. So I'm a little surprised what they do. And by the way, this is probably the swan song for Ohtani with the Angels. Talked about this a little bit on the Major League Baseball update on Friday. I wouldn't doubt that the Angels blow everything up. Drew brought up that Artie Moreno has had a horrendous tenure as the owner there. I think Phil Nevin won't be back as manager. I'm positive of that, unfortunately. Good baseball man. Thrown under the bus by Aaron Boone, by the way, a few years back. Gutless Aaron Boone. What was I going to say? Oh, I think Mike Trout, it's possible to move around, will be moved on, or will decide to move on, asked to be moved on. And the Yankee fans are already, with that being talked, Yankee fans are lathering at the mouth. Be careful what you wish for, Yankee fans. This is exactly the wrong kind of signing. This is exactly the kind of signing that they have been making for 30 years that doesn't work out. Great players, guys who were great players. And you'll probably have to redo his contract for him to come here and pay him more money And he's one of the 5 best players in baseball when he plays, but he doesn't play enough. If this was Mike Trout from his first 3 years, I'd say absolutely. And his numbers are good this year, but you can't say, well, when he plays, he's a great player. If he misses half the games or a third of the games, and you'll tell me, especially when we got Aaron Judge possibly in that same kind of situation. So if I'm the Yankees, I stay away from this. But I think you'll see the Angels really try to blow things up, as I said. Boy, I wish I could read my writing. We'll get into the races here in a little bit. Former Phillies manager Charlie Manuel suffered a stroke, so our thoughts and prayers go out to him. Charlie Manuel's now 79 years old. If you remember, he led the Phillies to their last World Championship, and they won 5 consecutive East titles under Charlie. It's funny because Charlie Manuel is kind of the accidental manager, if you will, and he turned out to be one of the best at it. We had an umpire go out of the game yesterday after he was struck by multiple foul tips and had to go through concussion protocol. Yankees, Anthony, I'm not sure how to say his name. I'll say it wrong. Mazowitz was released from the hospital, put on the DL. Sorry, we refuse to say IL here. Put on the DL. Very scary situation. He took a line drive to the face the other night. I did watch it. We were talking about it during golf yesterday. I had missed it because I had fallen asleep. But he was hit by a 100-mile-an-hour fastball. Now, one place I think exit velocity has meaning. You know how I feel about exit velocity. One place I think it has meaning is when you're struck in the face with a 100-mile-an-hour line drive from Pittsburgh's G1 Bay. This is why you're not winning championships, Mark Mancini. Anyway, we wish him well and hope. It was a very scary situation. Rocco Baldelli will miss a couple of Twins games here as his wife is about to give birth to twins. The Braves have played great baseball. Acuna's had some struggles with a calf injury recently, and they're taking some precautions here. What they do not need here these last 2 weeks is Acuna to go down before the playoffs start. And maybe we'll come back to this, the contenders who can win the World Series. Maybe we'll come back to that. I mean, teams that are playing well, I give the Yankees and Mets all kinds of credit. I'll get to your point real quick. Before I go to the standings, I give the Mets and the Yankees a lot of credit, and I have to give credit to Aaron Boone as much as I am not want to do that. And Buck Showalter, who I am more likely to do that for, because their teams are playing hard. The Mets have lost a couple in a row, but they played very well. They beat the Diamondbacks 3 out of 4, who are in the middle of a pennant race. The teams are going out there and playing very hard. The Yankees have played well recently, and Pittsburgh this weekend, big deal. But they're playing well. I think that 30-year streak of finishing over 500 means a lot to this team, and they're showing some pride in their play. It was really a blow to this team when Domingos went down and it was announced that he was going to miss not just this season, the rest of this season, but probably most of next year, when they were probably going to be counting on him heavily, maybe right out of spring training next year. Let me get back to let me get down here. Mets playing the Reds and losing. All I'm saying is the Mets have played hard. If you don't want to give teams credit that are out of the race for playing hard, then don't watch baseball, because that's what matters. I care about winning more as much as anybody, and winning at the end of the day is the name of the game. But when you're totally out of it, a lot of teams pack it in, get their golf clubs ready to start playing golf in the off season, and just don't go out there and go. They go through the motions out there. The Mets and Yankees have not done that. It would have been very easy for them to do that. So you give them some credit. The Mets, and don't get on the Mets for playing the Reds and losing. They just beat the Diamondbacks, who are in the same race as the Reds. And basically, they're almost mirror images of each other, the way they built themselves. And the Mets and Yankees ought to be looking at that, by the way. Don't get on the Mets for losing a couple in a row to the Reds when they just beat the Diamondbacks 3 out of 4. Got to chastise Carlos for something. Going back to the LSU, most all of them have been neutral site. Fair enough. It's not LSU's fault that a sponsor writes a huge check so the game will be played at a neutral field. Well, again, they don't go to that team's field to play as a rule. And you can't dispute the fact that the handful of SEC teams this year that have done that have not fared well. And again, going to try to move on here. CA, I'll be sharing another music suggestion this afternoon in the fantasy chat. Hint, save for reviewing when you need a calming moment during fantasy frenzy. Listen, speaking of music and my comments earlier about my horrible golf round yesterday that seemed to get better as I rode in a cart next to my friend Kenny. So you can, I guess at this point, I'll let you imagine for yourself how accidentally my play and calmness have improved on the second nine. There's a great Jimmy Buffett, as you know, the great Jimmy Buffett passed away a week or so ago. Love Jimmy Buffett. But if you're not a fan, don't worry about it. This conversation is not for you. And I'll just throw this out there as we are the Stream of Consciousness show. CA brings up music, so I'll bring this up. Jimmy Buffett will have a posthumous album coming out of all new music that he's done recently. One of those songs is being played, at least on the highway, and you can find it on YouTube. And I mentioned it to Kenny yesterday. But the title of the song is My Gummy Just Kicked In, and it is a really fun song to listen to, whether you like gummies, don't like gummies. I don't partake myself. Many people have told me I should to help with my rheumatoid situation, but I have not done that yet. But the song is it's really a fun song to listen to. Paul McCartney plays bass on this song, and it's really fun. Get out there and take a look for it. So I beat CA to the music suggestion, I guess, but good one. Good chat, but the underworld is calling. Time to get right in the mind. Kenny, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the golf outing yesterday. It was great to get out with you again, and hopefully we can do it again for the year's out. I know that as I said, I'm going to be tied up to the middle of October now. I have found out for my wife on Saturdays, and Sundays are just too hard as I have the show and then football. Lost me for a bit. Did I go away? I didn't see myself go away. Did anybody else see me go away? Kenny Gifford, no longer the underworld, but enjoy and relax. It is no longer the underworld. This is true. Matt Walder, the first knuckleballer to have a win since 2018. Is that right? I thought there was it's an interesting stat. The knuckleball is becoming a lost art. There's a great, speaking of that, I always bring up these little documentaries. There's a really good one, if you haven't seen it, and it might be on ESPN. I'm not sure. Might have been Netflix. In fact, I think it might have been Netflix. Called Knucksy, I believe is the name of it. And you can imagine the great knuckleballers of all time are highlighted in it. Phil Niekro, Joe Niekro, Hoyt Wilhelm, I think they talk about it a little bit in here. At the time it was made, I can't remember the guy for the Mets. Drew, you can probably help me out, who was a knuckleballer and had one great season with the Mets, and they ended up trading him, I think, to Toronto. Can't remember his name now. Right-hander. You don't see a lot of them. The Red Sox had one a few years back, so I'm surprised it's been that long since there's been a victory. But that's an interesting little side note. Ohtani trying to show his hitting value for free agency with his surgery coming up. I get that, right? But he's going to miss. Well, I guess if he can come back as quickly as Bryce Harper, but I could be wrong. No, Harper played through the playoffs last year. Maybe he could come back. I mean, again, Harper was scheduled to come back July, even August. He came back in June couldn't play in the field, and Ohtani's not going to play in the field, so I guess that doesn't matter. He's not going to pitch next year. That's probably a given. But again, I still look at what did he need to show? What more value can he show in his hitting than what he'd already shown? To me, there was no value for him to not have this surgery, if that's the route he's going, immediately. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. That's often the case. Actually, I wanted to see something because where is Matt Olson, by the way, speaking of home run hitters, Matt Olson became the all-time Atlanta Braves single season home run hitter. Not a small feat when you remember that Henry Aaron played his entire career with the Braves. And they had some other great home run hitters like Orlando Cepeda. And that team was all, and they played their entire Atlanta, well, not their entire Atlanta career, but the most of their Atlanta time before Turner Field. Now they played in the Fulton County Stadium, which was known as a launching pad for years. Carlos says, Vientos, Batty, Ortega, all similar to Alonso, McNeil, Nemo, and Marte. All these guys having problems driving in and run. Give him an opportunity. Probably a bigger question when it comes to the Mets right now. And Drew and I talked about this on Friday with David Stearns coming in to be the new head of baseball operations. And probably by all accounts, Epler's power is going to be greatly diminished at GM. Stearns is probably going to be, the main guy when it comes to baseball decisions, whether it be trades, free agents, or the manager. It's going to be interesting what they do with Buck. I don't think Buck deserves to take the fall for this, but the problem is when new guys come in, they want their own guy. Now, the thing that might save Buck is if the guy that Epler probably wants, Craig Counsell, is not available. He doesn't have a contract for next year yet. There's still a possibility he could return to Milwaukee. There's a possibility he takes a year off. The worst case scenario for Buck is Counsell's a free agent and Stearns is going to pick up the phone and call him. And then Buck would be available, and maybe we could get Buck across town and bring him home where he probably should have never left. Look, as much as I love Joe Torre and what he did winning those championships with the Yankees, and I'm not saying that everything would have proceeded the same if Buck had been there, but I'm confident Buck would have won a few world championships because it was Buck Showalter and Gene Michael who built that Yankee dynasty. Joe Torre did a great job managing it, but Buck Showalter built that team, and I'd like to see him come back and get a chance to build something new in New York and maybe win a championship there. Get hit. I think it would be very ironic and also fitting if Buck career could come full circle and he'd win his one world championship with the Yankees. I think that'd be awesome. And let's not forget, George Steinbrenner fired Buck Showalter after they lost a heartbreaker of the AL divisional series to the Mariners. If you remember that great 10-inning Game 5 where Ken Griffey scored from first on a hit by Edgar Martinez. Two great players. That was a good, very good Mariner team. Buck gets fired. I don't know if people know this or they don't, but I'll throw it out there. Buck gets fired. Joe Torre gets hired. And about 2 weeks later, George is thinking about how can I hire Buck back? He thought he'd made a huge mistake. Now, in retrospect, he didn't. And I'm not saying, again, Torre is a different manager than Buck Showalter. I get it. Maybe they don't win 3 out of 4 without Torre and with Buck. But again, I will tell you that Buck built that team along with Gene Michael. Yes, this was a very scary situation, as I talked about the other day, and hopefully he's okay. And as I said, I'm not a big excellent velocity fan, but when it's about you getting hit in the face, then I think exit velocity is important. And we do wish him well in his recovery. That was a very scary situation and could have turned out differently. And, look at sports. A lot of sports are dangerous. Please, Rob Manfred, we don't need to see pitchers out there with helmets and face guards on it like girls' high school softball. We just don't need it. Things like this are going to happen, and it's a dangerous game, and you know that when you go out there. Problem with all of sports, you try to make them safer, and you take away some of the really important elements in the game. I'm not saying guys getting hit in the face is an important element in the game, but you don't think it'll affect the way a guy pitches wearing a helmet and a face mask? We'll have this discussion soon because of the guy who's running the show. I won't disagree with this comment at all, Carlos. As Kenny Gifford said on Friday, this is one of the about a different situation. This is one of the smarter things I've heard you say in a while. I love Mike Trout. Don't get me wrong. I think Mike Trout is great for baseball. Mike Trout, if Mike Trout were healthy, Mike Trout might very well have been he is one of the greats in the game today, but he would have been up there if he played his entire career and not gotten hurt every single year, it seems. This guy would have been Mickey Mantle. Goodbye, Rally Monkey. Chris Sale turns back the clock for one game. Yeah, I think he's done that a couple times this year, Drew. Before he got hurt earlier in the year, he got off to a horrible start, if you remember. And he had a couple, at least one good game before he got hurt early in the year. So, again, not a guy that and the Red Sox fired their GM, which we talked about on Friday too, Bloom. If I'm the Red Sox, I can't be counting on Chris Sale to throw this type of game on a consistent basis going forward. So I try to rebuild that team. Thank you. R.A. Dickey, right? R.A. Dickey. Thank you, Carlos. And Drew's got it down here as well. R.A. Dickey had 3 very good seasons. I think he won a Cy Young Award, if I'm not mistaken, right? Or maybe he finished second. But he had 1 great season and 3 very good seasons, as Drew said. But he's featured in this. He's one of the features in this. Tim Wakefield's another one, obviously. But the Red Sox had another knuckleballer after him, I thought. Can't remember his name. Wasn't anybody that was a great pitcher. But watch, if you get a chance and you like these types of baseball documentaries, watch it. I do believe it's called Knucksy. All of the Rangers' high-risk pitching decisions, trading Cole, Reagans, who would be in the rotation, could be the worst. Interesting. I've thought more about the guys that they've brought in than the guys that they've sent away. And the Rangers, as we've talked about, now are fighting for their life after. It's funny. We talk about perspective. I talk about this all the time. If you're a Ranger fan in March or April, and we said that you'd be grasping onto the last playoff spot in the American League right now on September 16th, you would have been ecstatic, right? But given what's transpired over the last 4 or 5 months, now you're disappointed because you were leading. You had one of the best records in baseball. You might have had the best record in baseball for a little time. Played great baseball for, 3/4 of the season. Now your perspective is not making the playoffs would be a huge disappointment. So anyway, perspective is everything. And the Rangers right now, they did fight back. Now they've lost a couple in a row again. And we're going to get into some of the series here in a second, but we got to get into some NFL too. So you missed an A in his name, by the way. No, Carlos, but he picks the guys who do drive in runs. That's his job. I mean, you can't dismiss. Oh my God, that's just ridiculous. You can't dismiss the guys who aren't on the field, who are making baseball decisions about who will be on the field, and say they won't matter. He will help the Mets drive in runs. You're absolutely wrong. If he does his job well, he will bring in guys who will drive in runs, who will hit with runners in scoring position, and not all be Pete Alonso, who's turned into Dave Kingman. So actually, that comment's not accurate. It's not accurate even a bit. If he does his job well and correctly, then he'll put guys in the lineup or available for the manager to put into the lineup, hopefully, that will drive in runs. So actually, your comment's wrong. Well, Stearns hasn't been there in 2 years, at least, I believe. So he's not overrated because they've been, over the last 10 years, they've made the playoffs 5 of those years, I believe, with one of the lowest payrolls in baseball. So listen, you can, and this is you, Carlos, you like to be negative about everything New York related. For whatever reason, I don't know why you're a fan. I'm negative where it warrants it. I can be very hard on my teams, but I don't just go out of my way looking for reasons. If you're not excited about David Stearns coming in and running his team, tell me somebody better. Tell me somebody who's done a better job with less, except the guy when what was his name? Friedman, help me out, Drew. The guy in Tampa Bay, and whoever's there now. Done a great job with the Brewers. Put together one of the best pitching staffs in baseball. They've made playoffs and advanced in the playoffs a couple of times. Now, I thought they'd win a World Series, but they didn't. Yeah, because first of all, Jeter's not going to the Mets, and you want a guy. Oh my God. Reggie Jackson, you would hire Reggie Jackson or Posada, guys with no experience, to run your organization. Took Jeter a while in Miami to get his footing. He did at the end, and he's part of putting a team together that's more fun to watch and actually contending to play for a playoff spot. But it's their GM. The first female GM, by the way, who's really had the impact after Jeter removed himself from day-to-day operations and finally from the operation altogether. I don't think Jeter proved he had any clue how to put together a winning baseball team. Not in my mind. And I'm a huge Jeter fan. So you're going to berate a guy who's had success, but you'd rather bring in three guys, and Reggie hasn't got any real success. He's had honorary positions, basically, with every organization he's ever worked for. And the Yankees said goodbye to him. I think he might be working with the Astros now. But that doesn't make sense. You're going to take a team with the highest payroll and turn it over to freaking guys who have no experience at all other than Jeter, and he doesn't want to do it anymore. Jeter would be better in the dugout than he would and so would Posada probably. Be better in the dugout than in the front office. Can the Mets bring in champion-type guys? The New York City teams have always been mediocre management over the past 10 years. Well, I've said Brian Cashman outlived his usefulness 10 years ago. Mets don't stick with anybody long enough to get any kind of traction. They keep turning things over. They had a very good baseball man in Sandy Alderson, who has left the organization a couple of times for different reasons, health being one of them. Guys, it's Sunday, not Friday. It's football. We're going to get to football in a second. Welcome, Tanner, by the way. Tanner, I wanted to let you know I talked to Dan Harrison. Guys, keep it, as I say every show, keep a good thoughts and a prayer for Dan Harris, if you would. Tanner, I talked to Dan a lot yesterday, so I hope you and I can hook up at some point. I was not able to share the show today to Let's Talk Sports, so that's why you won't see it live there. I'm not sure, Tanner, it could be something that just got changed on YouTube, and I know that I know the situation and what the situation is going to be going forward. So maybe you and I can chat, and if things have changed and we don't want that, that's fine. But I'm not sure what I wasn't going to talk to him about it, obviously. And I don't want to get into too much here, but maybe you and I can chat offline, private message or whatever. Just so I know that situation. I do know the situation. Dickey, Cy Young, 2012, 20-6. Yeah, that's what I thought. Excellent pitcher for 3 years. League caught up with him a little bit. We're going to switch gears to the NFL here in just a bit. How many years have the Brewers been in championships? The same number as the Mets. The Mets made one in 2015. Small market, big market, Carlos. Different expectations. I would hazard to say the Brewers getting to no World Series and the Mets getting to one in the last 8 years is not a big victory or a big black mark on David Stearns. This year. What was that? I don't know what that is. No GMs are perfect. Stearns makes way more right ones than wrong ones. I mean, listen, he didn't put together a great offense out there, but he put together a really scrappy team and he put together a really great pitching staff. I can tell you that, and which they have tried to dismantle a bit. Number one, getting rid of Josh Hader. Last year, I should say, at the trading deadline. And it's nice to see Carlos recover quickly from this one good one. Well, we can't expect him to stay up here, Drew. Carlos is MO. I'm in New York City. We're going to switch to football, Tanner. So if you got some comments about football, get them ready. Fire them up, and we'll make the transition here in a second. I'm in New York City. I want a championship caliber winning staff, players, period. Listen, I don't disagree. We disagree on who those people are. That's all. We all want championships. And by the way, when it comes to, I wouldn't even talk about the Mets and the Yankees the same way. Mets do not have even close to the pedigree the Yankees have. And Yankee fans like myself should be far more upset than Met fans because you don't have the freaking track record. And you're never going to either, by the way, like the Knicks and the Nets. Conhai isn't having trouble driving runs. Well, now that they're out of it. Only 6 NL wildcard contenders, maybe 4 have negative run. Yeah, that's interesting, too, by the way. The Padres still with a huge run differential. I promise we'll get to some football here at some point. We did talk college football for the first hour, which threw me behind a little bit. What's amazing to me is the Padres, it's very hard to be 7 games under 500 and be plus 68 run differential. And Drew is correct. The Reds, the Diamondbacks, the Marlins, and the Giants all with pretty good run differentials. Bad on the bad side. Cubs have the best of all those wild cards. The team I hate the least or the most. But anyway, one of the great races left is the wild card race where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'll count 5 teams for 2 spots. I'm going to give the Phillies the benefit of the doubt and say they're in. 5 teams for 2 spots. In the American League, you've got Yankees trying hard to sneak back in this, but I don't think that'll happen. A miracle would have to happen. The Mariners, Blue Jays, the Rangers, and the Rays. You've got basically 3 teams fighting for 2 spots there. You still got pretty good. I want to get to the standings just so that we can move on to football. You got a great race yet in the American League. The Orioles and the Rays with a pretty good series going back and forth this week. The Rays still just one game behind the Orioles. Great race out west in the American League. The Astros holding on to first place despite losing 2 in a row. They've all lost 2. That's the problem. Every team in the division's on a losing streak, basically. The Mariners have lost 2 in a row. The Rangers have lost 2 in a row. The Rangers a half game back, do hold the last wild card spot. I believe it's the last wild card spot. And the Mariners. I'm on record as saying the Rangers will not make it. The Blue Jays will, and the Mariners will, along with the Rays, obviously. In the National League, we got no division races to speak of. We just talked about the wild card race. I did say Friday when Scott Cody put me on the spot. I predicted that the Cubs would fall out of the race. They've lost 4 in a row, and they are now just a half a game ahead of the Reds and the Diamondbacks, and a game ahead of the Marlins. I did say the Cubs would be out, the Diamondbacks and the Marlins would be in. See how that holds up. Finish up our baseball talk here. So we move on to the NFL. Jackson has been on the Astros staff and won a World Series. Doing what? Doing what exactly? Come on, Carlos. He's there for his name, and you know it. Reggie Jackson has no pedigree, front office pedigree at all. He wasn't asked for his opinion in New York for a reason. He's a great baseball player, not an evaluator. End of story. Jeter dumped Stanton and Yelich. Well, again, I said, well, is that good? Yelich was still a great player when he got rid of him. And who did he get back for freaking Stanton? Where are they? Gone. I want Stearns to maybe... yeah. Again. Keep dismissing. We'll move on. This will be our transition, I guess, to football. Schoen and Daboll surely likely will have their day sooner or later. One of the biggest overreactions in week 1 is the Giants and the Cowboys. The Cowboys are not that good. The Giants are not that bad. The Giants are a very good football team with a very small margin for error. They don't have the same margin for error that the Eagles have, right? Or the 49ers have. Or even the Cowboys have. They have got to be clicking on all cylinders, which, by the way, they did with Brian Daboll and Schoen as their coach. When was the last time this team was in the playoffs and won a game, Carlos, before last year? And don't tell me about the game they lost to the Eagles. I'm not asking about that. Why do I have to defend the teams I hate? Unbelievable. The way you guys hate on a team and hate on a quarterback who, if he'd been a second-round pick, would be a star to you guys. But because he was picked 6th in the draft, you think he stinks. He's gotten better every single year. Now, he has one bad game, and yes, the coaching staff put him in a horrible position last week to have a chance to win that game. They were not ready to play. But I will tell you that 40-0 decision was also influenced greatly by the fact that I talk about all the time that nobody is prepared to play in week 1 because they don't hit in training camp. They don't play real football in training camp. And you cannot possibly be ready for real football in week 1, 2, or 3. Giants will recover today against the worst team in football. I love the Jets. Another big overreaction. Aaron Rodgers, great quarterback. Great move. I've done a lot of the rating of Aaron Rodgers over the last 4 years. This was a good move for the Jets. Their season is not over because Aaron Rodgers is out with a ruptured Achilles. And by the way, he's not coming back this year, no matter what he says. I've had the injury. I'm not an NFL football player. He's not coming back. But the Jets are still got too much talent. Zach Wilson in a few weeks that he's had to be, a few weeks, I guess it's months when you go back to OTAs and whatnot, Aaron Rodgers was a good influence on Zach Wilson. And Zach Wilson, by the way, played pretty competent football against a good football team Monday night in the second half. He came in, it was a little shaky. There's too much talent around him. That defense is championship caliber. They play great football on Monday night. Huge overreactions. Biggest overreactions in football for me. Giants Cowboys game. Turf football fields. Cleveland Browns, Miami Dolphins. Get somebody else written here and I can't write it down. I guess it was the Browns. Oh, the Browns. I think I said that. Huge overreactions. Mets traded him. Fandom should be frustrated. For some reason, they mentioned contending in the last 2 years instead of when we're talking about R.A. Dickey. Yeah, I don't even remember who they got for him. Does anybody even remember who they got for him? A lot of key injuries in football today, as Drew says. Eckler's out. Big fantasy football implications. Hopkins, Dulcich. I dropped him. Used my tight end on a bunch of teams. Zerline. Dante Johnson. All good points. Yes, thank you, Aaron Rodgers, for helping Zach Wilson. What color should be his game? What the hell? Yeah, Jesus Christ. You know, Carlos, the reason I get so frustrated with you is you make these types of comments. You don't think, by the way, how did Jordan Love play last week? Now, maybe that's an overreaction and we shouldn't get too excited about, but he played pretty good football. You know why? And I hate, believe me, here I am again, defending a guy that I can't stand in Aaron Rodgers. He's selfish, but he's not selfish in the fact that he has also helped bring along young quarterbacks, Jordan Love and Zach Wilson. Jordan Love, he helped the 2 years he was in Green Bay, where Brett Favre, the prima donna, would not help Aaron Rodgers even a little bit after he was drafted because he said it's not his job, which maybe it's not. But you're doing a disservice to your organization if you're not preparing the guy who's going to replace you, because you may just retire. You may not leave and go to other teams and travel around the league like Brett Favre did and Aaron Rodgers chose to do. So here I am defending a guy I don't like because everybody's got some kind of redeeming quality, don't they? Most people, maybe not me, but most people. Huge overreactions to some of these games last week. Let me look at a couple other games real quick from last week. That's my standings. Where's my crap? All right, let me guess I don't need this anymore. Let me go last week's scores real quick. Then we're going to get to this week's games, I promise you. It's only 10 after. I do have to be done at 10:30. Got a guy coming to put some fans up, plus I got to get out of here. And yes, I can hang my own ceiling fans. The problem is the ceiling is 20 feet in the air. I can't do that. Overreactions. Lions beating the Chiefs. Huge overreaction. Watch the Lions get beat at home today by Seattle, by the way. Eagles. We already saw the Eagles come back. We had guys ripping the Eagles offense on Friday morning. What are they watching? Week one, their offense was not good. The Patriots did a great job. A little bit of an overreaction to the Eagles' struggles there as they played very well. And by the way, I'm going to say not an overreaction. Mac Jones played really good football last week. 315 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 interception. Bad one early in the game. Patriots showed me something last week. There's no moral victories in this league, but they showed me something last week. staying in this game with a chance to win it in the fourth quarter. Bad mistakes, a couple penalties. But for most of this game, they played well against a good Eagle defense. Smart move. Why I keep saying to you guys who think the Patriots are going to win 5 or 6 games this year, all you need to know about the difference in this Patriot team was shown to you last week with the way the play calling went from Bill O'Brien and controlling. And I said, by the way, before the game started, they controlled that pass rush. They would slow that pass rush down. He got sacked once late in the game, Mac Jones, by a team that sacked the most quarterbacks in football last year. They slowed it down with screen passes, ran the football effectively for the most part, kept the ball away from the Eagles' offense, and slowed down the pass rush. Got themselves back in the game after digging a huge hole. Giants couldn't do it. Patriots almost did. Browns 24-3. Again, to me, this is just, again, a situation of a team not being prepared coming out of training camps where we don't prepare. We don't get players ready for football. And if you think I'm wrong, tune into the Mac and Jack and Jim Jeffcoat show. Jim Jeffcoat, one of the great defensive linemen of all time with the Dallas Cowboys. He probably ought to be in a Hall of Fame. Agrees with me 100% that the reason we see such crappy football in September is the fact that training camp is, like day camp. You can't get ready to play real football games in helmets and shorts. You wear pads 10 times a preseason, and then nobody plays in preseason games, and then the games stink. And Carlos is going to tell me he's tired of watching bad football from New York teams. Well, how about we actually get the NFL Players Association to stop worrying about replacing Fields as cause of injuries and maybe get guys prepared to actually get hit. Let them get hit in training camp. Let them get hit in preseason games. Let them get hit in practice during the season, because that's what prepares you to get hit during games. My argument is against turf, against grass. It's about the Players Association negotiating all this nonsense that is, again, just like pitchers I talk about. The reason we have so many injuries is because these freaking teams are trying to protect players, and the things they're doing to protect them is actually hurting them. Same thing with the NFL Football Players Association by trying to protect their players by having them limit the times they get hit outside of games is getting them hurt more in games. End of story. I'll get to your comments in a second. I want to see some other overreactions. Maybe there were no other ones. I don't think the 49ers game is an overreaction, 30-7. I think they're that good. Steelers, I don't think are as bad as that, but the Cardinals only losing by 4. Don't get confused. That's a horrible football team. Packers, we'll find out whether that's an overreaction. 3 touchdowns for Jordan Love in this game, by the way. Helped by Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years. Raiders beat the Broncos. Not sure what to make of that. Dolphins, let's not get too excited about the, 5,000 yards of offense the Chargers ran up. On the road, that was impressive. But we'll see if somehow Bill Belichick slows that offense down today, they'll have a chance. We'll go through those games in just a second. Rams 30-13 over the Seahawks. I still like the Seahawks to make the Super Bowl out of the NFC. I'm not going to overreact there even a little bit. Again, this is more a sign of lack of preparation because of the way the players are allowed to do nothing in training camp to prepare for the season, basically. Cowboys, Giants, we talked about. Jets and Bills, we talked about. Let me get to your comments, and then we'll go to the games for this week. If the Jets win the Super Bowl with a kid, it's the best Christmas gift. They might. As you know, my pick was the Jets against the Seahawks. The Jets would lose. I am not ready to say. I do say this makes it easier for the other AFC East teams. when you don't have to prepare for Aaron Rodgers, you got to prepare for Zach Wilson. But Zach Wilson doesn't need to be great. Zach Wilson needs to be good. That's it. There are so many weapons around this Jet team, unless they're just decimated by injuries somehow. They could still win a lot of football games. Jordan Love realized he was actually a starter the last game. What does that mean? What does that mean? They're preparing to be the starters all off season. What does that mean? And again, if you pay attention to what's going around the league, you know that Aaron Rodgers worked very closely with Jordan Love to help him develop his game and be ready to be the starter. I'm not telling you that Aaron Rodgers is totally responsible for Jordan Love's play last week. And again, I got to see more out of him before I think that's real. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Rieger. I'm not sure you're going to see him on the field a whole lot today. Melvin Gordon with Baltimore might be. We lost in the Aaron Rodgers hyperbole is the fact that J.K. Dobbins went down with the exact same injury last weekend as well. Carlos is a gaslighter. Carlos handles it well. Because he'll just come back with something stupider. There you go. Thank you, Carlos, for backing up my comment as I was making it. Mac Jones had a Mike White performance. Yeah, because Mac Jones has never shown he can play in this league. Everybody wants to take, the first 6 games. He played very well in the second half of last season, by the way. Did throw a bad interception in the last game when they could have made the playoffs, but he played horrible the first 7, 8, 9 games of the season last year. The rest of the season, he played much better. He had a very good rookie season and made the playoffs. Mike White's done all of that, hasn't he? Mike White has one good game, he gets hurt. See you, Billy. Have a good day, buddy. Let's get into the picks here so we get out of here. Back to football. We are back to football. Other than the Fish, the Bolts, and Thursday night NFL games so far back in Texas, the best football has been high school football games. Well, that's almost always the case, isn't it? CA? I would say one state, maybe 2. Actually, it might be more. A lot of those schools in the South, Texas, Alabama, Georgia, Florida, they may actually care more about high school football than they do college or the pros. And they care a lot about those teams too. So that tells you how much they care about their their high school team. Sorry, I lost track of what I was saying. Let's look at this week's games quick before we run out of time. I'll give you my picks. I don't know who I'm going to pick in this big survivor pool. Just don't know. We already had the Eagles win, we know, the other night. Ravens and Bengals. I'm going to take the Bengals in this game, -3.5. God, it's a tough pick for the survivor pool this week. It really is. We should have taken the Eagles the other night, but we should have done. Bengals, I like the Bengals over the Ravens at home, -3.5. I think they'll bounce back. Joe Burrow can't play that bad. That's the worst game of Joe Burrow's career. I'm going to take the Patriots +3 at home. I'm going to bet that Bill Belichick and that defensive coaching staff will find a way to slow down this team. One way to slow them down, keep them off the field. Run the football, run the screens the way they did last week. Keep the ball moving down the field. Control the clock. Don't turn the ball over. Don't have bad penalties, and you'll have a chance to win this game. Again, Dolphins may win this game. Patriots will not go down without a fight. I love the Bills -8.5. Bills will bounce back. One of the other big overreactions is the overreactions to the bad game Josh Allen had last week. There was a lot of stuff going on in that game. Josh Allen needs to control himself a little better. He's still one of the top 3 quarterbacks in football. Buffalo will very likely be our problem is everybody's going to take Buffalo. I like to find a team where I can root against a bunch of guys to fall out of the pool. And I need another 120 to go out of this pool this week. What I need. Giants, well, the post pick 7 -4. I think they might be 5.5. I like the Giants over the Cardinals a lot. They'll be a bet for me today as well. Probably the Giants might be our might be. It's going to be Giants or Buffalo will probably be our survivor pool pick. I like the Jets +9 at the Cowboys. Again, they may not win this game, but I can see the Jets being in this game. Too much talent all over the field. I know quarterback is hugely important. I'm not dismissing that. Zach Wilson just needs to manage the game. Stay within himself. Don't turn the ball over. Throw the ball away when there's nothing there. I like the Jets a lot. I like the 49ers -7.5 at the Rams. The Rams played good last week, but the 49ers are so much better than the Rams. They're without Cooper Kupp. I'm shocked they beat Seattle last week. Until they show me something different, I'm not taking the Rams. They got to show me some consistency in doing that. And the 49ers won over, I think, a pretty good Pittsburgh team by 30 on the road last week. Seahawks, I like +4.5 over the Lions. I'll take the Chargers -2.5 over Tennessee at home. Got to come back from a bad loss to Miami last week. Chiefs -3.5 over the Jaguars. Listen, again, I will tell you, the demise of the Kansas City Chiefs is greatly exaggerated. I may bet the over in some of these games. I think there's going to be some points scored. Unlike last week, there was a lot of low-scoring games, at least on one side of the ball. The Texans and the Colts is probably a game that you'd have to pay me to go see. I'm going to take the Texans on the road here. Packers. I'm going to take the Falcons at home over the Packers. I like what the Falcons did last week. They look good. Maybe it's an overreaction to that. The Packers did go in and handle the Bears on the road last week. 2 weeks in a row on the road. I'm going to take the Falcons in this game. Buccaneers and Bears. Boy, this is a tough one for me. I like the Bears. I picked the Bears to win that Central. This is going to be a tough game on the road. I'm going to take the Bears to rebound against a Buck team that surprised me last week, winning in Minnesota. Broncos, I will pick to come back and beat the Commanders at home. I do like the Broncos, and I'd like Wilson to be one of the comeback player of the year in the NFL. Probably going to take the Saints over the Panthers because I don't think the Panthers are very good. Not a big fan of the Saints either. And Derek Carr, but I will take the Saints in this game. And I will take the Steelers at home +2.5 over the Browns. I think the Steelers are a lot better than they showed last week, and I don't think the Browns are nearly as good as they showed last week. So we'll see how that all shakes out. Take a look at your comments as we get ready to wrap up this week of Stream of Consciousness. Drew, what do you got? Dallas Robert Jones might qualify as a good Texas team. I would agree. But again, I think one of my overreactions for week 1 is on both sides of this. Dallas is not as good as what you saw. The Giants are not as bad as what you saw. Again, I expect the Giants to bounce back and still contend for a playoff spot. Maybe even be a surprise in this division. Rams upset of San Francisco would be very dramatic. San Francisco is really, really good. Carlos hates anything to do with the Shanahans, but this is a really good football team. Brock Purdy is the real deal. If they stay healthy, they run the ball. They got guys who can go out and catch the ball. They play good defense. They don't turn the ball over. Good team. Shanahan teams has 6 games in a row against the Rams, which I take as a compliment from you, Carlos. You don't normally say anything nice about the teams run by Kyle Shanahan, so thank you for that. Any last words, guys, before I wrap it up? We're going to wrap it up a few minutes early. Those are my picks. But anything else I want to talk about in football? Let me look real quick. Lots of injuries. Drew talked about that at the top. Sounds like the guy's working upstairs on my fans, and I got to get ready to get out of here in 45 minutes or so. She's unlikely to be able to tag Jones, by the way, so who knows when that's going to get resolved. Charlie Sanders is a great tight end for the Lions. Barry Sanders has a statue unveiled at Ford Field. Well-deserved. Barry Sanders, one of the great players, running backs in NFL history. Never got a chance to play in a good team. The Packers are likely to be without both Aaron Jones and Christian Watkins today. What else? Anything else? That's about all I got. Brandon Cook's not expected to play today. Calvin Ridley debut clinches a 4th rounder to the Falcons. So with Ridley actually playing a game, he actually clinches a better pick for the Falcons. By the way, before I wrap it up, one thing we didn't talk about with the Aaron Rodgers situation is him not getting 65% of the snaps, I think, hurts Green Bay because their 1st-round pick will now become a 2nd-round pick next year. So something we hadn't thought about. We're going to wrap it up with that. Guys, great show today. Great input from you guys. Again, keep a good thought in your mind and prayers for our good friend Dan Harris. And also, don't forget, we'll be back live Wednesday night on our regular time for the College Football Huddle. I'll also join Robert Butler at 8:30 that night on SportsScope. We'll be back with the Are You Serious show on Friday and my regular appearance on the Mac and Jack show on Friday. We'll have our Major League Baseball update Friday, and the New York Let's Talk New York show will probably be on permanent hiatus, and we'll talk more about that in the coming week. And also, we'll be back here next week with the Stream of Consciousness. You guys have been great. Have a great Sunday. Go Patriots.